We are a couple days into our reporting trip here. Right now, we're just outside of East Palestine, Ohio. I'm here with Candace DeSanzo, who we've chatted with a couple times before over the last couple months. Before I start chatting with Candace, though, I'll just give a brief update as to how the trip's been going so far. We've had a busy couple days so far. Yesterday, we spoke to several residents throughout the day, both in East Palestine as well as over the border in Darlington, Pennsylvania. Just a reminder, Darlington is just a couple hundred feet further down the train tracks from where East Palestine is. They dealt with a lot of the blunt of all of this, the brunt of this. Wow, that was a great way to start. The brunt of this and the plume of chemicals and all of this sort of stuff really affected Darlington quite a bit as well. So we spent some time speaking with residents on both sides of the state line there. Today we've had a very busy day. Caught up with several residents, some new, some old, including folks like Chrissy Ferguson, who, again, Contaminated Sulfur Run literally runs under her backyard through a tunnel. She has been relocated temporarily for now, but is still dealing with needing, having health concerns. She was working in town. She's now working outside of town, and her health is seeming to get better, which is good news there. So we'll have an interview with her posted over the next couple days. We also did a follow-up with Lonnie Miller, who we spoke with a couple months back. She's another East Palestine resident, and we had a really good conversation this afternoon, especially about the mental side of all of this. A lot of folks, focus on the physical health effects, but the mental side of it is also a really difficult thing, and it's harder to talk about. It doesn't get as much attention, but there is a lot of trauma involved in having a massive accident like this. For a lot of residents, happen in their front yard, in their backyard, to see, big plumes of fire and smoke and have this happen in your community is a big deal. Also had some conversations with a few new residents as well, Linda Murphy and others throughout the day. So if you're just seeing us for the first time, you want to see more of this content from East Palestine, please consider subscribing to Status Coup. You can do it right down below. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll be the first to see them. If you're also joining us too, please press the like button to help get this out to more folks. Super chats are also very welcome. I will read through them all at the end of the show. I know I missed two of them yesterday, Tony D and Das Bosch Fleisch. I missed your super chats yesterday. Apologies if you're watching now. Candace, thank you so much for taking the time to join us again. We're currently at your Airbnb where you're staying temporarily. I guess to get folks up to speed, how have things been going since the last time we spoke a couple months back? What sort of things have you been dealing with?
Well, not much has changed since February 3rd. We're still dealing with the same things. We've been failed at every level. For me, I've had to live away from my home for almost a half a year now. I've had to drag my small children from Airbnb to Airbnb. And, that's traumatizing in itself, them not knowing where they're going, having to sleep in strange beds all the time. The health symptoms had, stopped once we left the town. We actually have gone back to town a few times because our family's there. My father's there. My boyfriend's parents live there. And actually on Mother's Day, we went back and we spent like 4 hours outside. And when we were driving home, I turned around and looked at Jack, and he was drooling, and I could see blood pulled in his drool. I'm like, are you kidding me? 4 hours, and that's what's happening to him already. And then the following day, I did end up having to take him to the ER because he was not getting air. Mm-hmm. He was not able to breathe. And, when I got him to the ER, they had to give him multiple breathing treatments, and we just stayed out of town, and he seemed to recuperate, but it's been a rough road, and I'm tired. I won't ever stop fighting because this fight isn't for me, but it's for my children, and it's for people's lives, people's lives that matter. We were a great community at one time, and our community has been ruined not only by poison, but by PR, by people pitting people against each other, and it's just, it's sad,
No, absolutely. And I kind of want to get into some of this. In the last couple weeks now, the EPA and Norfolk Southern have agreed on a sort of cleaning program, cleaning protocol, with the idea to go in and once and for all, clean up everybody's houses and
get rid of the forever chemicals.
Yes, with a simple dusting, essentially, which we'll get into in a second here. But they're using this kind of cleaning protocol to try to get residents to move back into their homes. I know that this exact circumstance isn't what you're going through. We're going to get into the specifics of your case, which is being forced home in another way almost. But can you talk a little bit about the cleaning program that is currently being put forward by Norfolk Southern with the approval of the EPA, and what the gist of the feelings of residents are on it?
Well, what my understanding is this cleaning program was actually headed by the EPA and is being funded by Norfolk Southern. Mm-hmm. And if this cleaning program is headed by the EPA, they should be ashamed of themselves. It almost makes me laugh as hard as the fish kill wasn't from the chemicals and from them tearing the bridge down.
Right.
It's ludicrous. And if you have any common sense at all, people are going to be able to look at what they're doing for a cleaning and say, seriously, it considers dry dusting your walls. I can take a broom down my walls and dry dust them, vacuuming, wiping off counters. That is nothing. And these homes are multi-generational homes, which means that most of them are packed to the gills because it's full of family after family's things. And, we're just, a small town and people hold on to things. Mm-hmm. And for them to come in and say they won't clean any uninhabitable rooms, how are you going to clean my whole house but not clean my attic or my basement? Mm-hmm. Do you think that stuff's not going to transfer? It just makes no logical sense. And they want people to accept something that isn't enough. They are not hazmat certified. And if you are the EPA and you are here for the protection of human health and the environment, why would you do any shortcuts at all? Especially when the majority of homes that have not been cleaned already are the homes of people who have been gone for 6 months. Mm-hmm. These homes have sat abandoned. What do you think that does, especially with all the remediation going on, all that dirt, all that dust flying in the air? You think we're just going to be able to go home and you're going to be able to dry dust our walls and it's miraculously okay? Right. No, it's not logical. And the people that are doing it, I know that those people wouldn't even probably accept it if it was their homes. It's having basic human decency for another human being. We are not animals. We are not mice in a lab. We are human beings, and we are not treated like human beings. We are treated like nothing. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, to go a little bit further into the cleaning program too, I mean, they're essentially, again, like you mentioned, dusting, vacuuming. They say they won't move any furniture.
They won't do any samples.
Yeah.
They won't do any wipe samples, any air samples. No testing will be done because they claim that they have not found any chemicals in the air, water, or the soil.
Right. And they're continuing to also, I mean, we've got direct comment from the EPA on this. They're continuing to stand behind the air testing that was done back in February with the PID photoionization detectors, which we've covered plenty of times at this point. They're not sufficient for the type of testing that needed to be done. We've got expert after expert who have said so, including one of them who works for the EPA, Mark Durno, on video saying that it is not sufficient. Yet now, just 2 weeks ago, in an email from the EPA telling me that we disagree with the assessments of all of those other people. And this includes university professors, this includes former EPA officials, a current one, as I mentioned. And the reason they're saying that this cleaning that they're doing right now, this dusting and vacuuming of homes, is sufficient is because in their air testing that they did back in February and March, they didn't find anything in people's homes. That is the only indoor air testing, for the most part, that the EPA has done. And we've got experts such as Dr. Andrew Welton and others who are coming out blatantly and saying, if that's what you've got, there has been no credible indoor air testing in East Palestine whatsoever. And what you just said, I mean, they won't do it now even. They won't test indoor air in East Palestine now. We're working on a story right now. I did get some results from a independent tester who did indoor air sampling just a couple days after CTEH, the railroad contractor, alongside the EPA, did air monitoring in a small business in East Palestine downtown. And the difference in results from these photoionization detectors and the commercial lab that came in and did independent testing are dramatically different. We're working on going through all of that information. We'll be publishing it at some point in the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that. Again, easy way to stay tuned for that, subscribe down below, and we'll make sure that you see that in a video coming out in the next couple of days to a week. So it's outrageous, though, that they're using that. It's a consistent
thing that they have been doing. No matter how much we try to disprove what they are saying, they will go along with the narrative that it's safe and fine, even when people are taking videos that blatantly show chemicals in the water, dead fish. They want to blame it on a bridge being torn down. What, did the debris come down and hit the fish in the head and kill them?
Right.
No. And just like we've had a multitude of independent testing. I have testing on my home. You did an article on it showing, that there are high levels of dioxins there. And even though we show them this information, show them this testing using the same lab that the EPA uses, they will not break that narrative that it is safe.
Right.
And it's like, if you are the EPA and are truly a government agency that is here to protect us as people, why is all that other information of independent testing irrelevant? Why is that not being taken into consideration? Why? It makes no logical sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. And since this thing, like you say, you feel like it's a conspiracy theory. Right. And it almost is, because it's like, sometimes you cannot believe that's actually going on here.
No. I've said that a couple times. Yeah, it's like, as you dig deeper into this, it seems like it can't be real, but every single time it is, unfortunately.
Yes.
Outrageous. I kind of want to get into the specifics of your situation now, where at the end of the week here, you will actually be moving back into your home. It's not something that you're looking forward to doing. Can you just kind of walk us through how, why that's happening now, the process that you've been going through as that's been going on?
Well, to start with, I'm physically, emotionally, and mentally drained, and I'm not saying that I give up, but I know within the next 2 to 3 months, I'm not going to be the only one that's going to be forced to go home. The time is coming where Norfolk Southern assistance will end when the EPA deems that it's cleaned enough, or you get this house cleaning done. And there are going to be many more families that have to follow me, because we are in situations where I've looked for other options the last 6 months. I own my own home. Even if I sell my own home, I cannot replace a home, even that's, way, way lesser of a value, without my house payment doubling. It's just something that is an impossibility to me. I have looked. There's no Airbnbs left available. There is a field that you can put a tent up in. I don't think that's, very feasible for me. I could go stay in a hotel, but I know that it would only last a couple weeks. I have 2 dogs, a cat, and 3, smaller children, and it's just not feasible for a family to do that. And also, my son starts school Monday, and he suffered the last 9 weeks because he has an individual education plan, and I cannot give him the supportive services he needs. So this disaster has affected my family on every level. It's hurting my kids' schooling, education, their health. It's hurting me where I'm a mess. I'm stressed out all the time. And it's just, it's a terrible tragedy. And for this to have gone on as long as it has, because when this first started, never could I imagine that when we started school that I would still not know where I was going to go next. So I am being forced, in my opinion, to go back to a house that I don't want to go to. And my hopes are, the only reason I'm going back there, I know when we go back there, we're going to get sick. I know we are. I've been going there the last week and trying to clean things out. And both times I went there, my throat started swelling shut. My teeth got numb. I felt like my head was going to explode when I got back here. And it's like, I have to go back and make my kids bleed out of every orifice of their body. And then I have to provide proof once again that we cannot live in this home.
Right.
Because your word just can't be taken,
Right. And it's to try to get them to do something more than what is happening right now. I mean, like you said, you're not actually being like forced by saying, hey, you're going back tomorrow, but you're being forced in another way of the amount of hoops you need to jump through to be able to be reimbursed for all of these things, to find Airbnb after hotel being moved from one to the other because somebody else booked it on a different time. It becomes to a point where you just can't continue to do that anymore. And Norfolk Southern is not offering any real solutions for someone to not bounce from apartment to apartment, Airbnb to Airbnb, hotel to hotel, but to permanently relocate.
Well, the terrible thing is, like I've told Norfolk Southern, you guys could have paid off my house 3 times. 3 times by now with what you guys have spent for me to stay in an Airbnb. I'm going to say it like my dad says it. What they're doing is ass backwards. It makes no logical sense. If you have just a small amount of the population that wants to leave, why can't you let us leave? It's because it sets a precedence. Because I'll tell you what, if they paid one person to leave, there'd be a lot more people speaking up and wanting to leave and not just living there pretending like everything's okay.
Yeah.
People are doing that because we're being left with no other choice.
Right. And you're not the only one to have said that, too. I mean, I've spoken with other residents off the record, too, who are saying, like, hey, like, I've done the math on what I've been reimbursed so far for hotels for not weeks, but months living in a hotel. Months living in a hotel, months being reimbursed for food or, furniture or whatever, whatever you had to get rid of in your old home, all of this stuff. And they were saying the same thing. They're saying, man, if they would have just offered me that amount of money for my home or to help me buy another home somewhere else, I would have happily taken that and moved on. I mean, it wouldn't have been ideal, but it is a million times better than the situation that you all find yourselves in now, of going, again, moving around all these different places, needing to go submit receipts, all of these different things. I mean, the last time we spoke, I think, you mentioned some of the difficulties in dealing with Norfolk Southern at that assistance center.
And it's been the same ever since.
Yeah, I'm curious some of your experiences dealing with them more recently or even over the last couple of months.
Well, eventually, in the end, they've given me everything that I've asked for, but it hasn't been without a fight. And I think I found what they do. This Appalachian culture over here, we don't want to ask people for handouts or help, and a lot of people won't do that, because that's how these people are raised. You take care of your own and that's it. And what they'll do a lot is, I think they'll say no just to see if you don't come back. You know what I mean? Because they know as the numbers go down and the numbers go down, the faster they're going to be able to get out of there. Because once this reaches a certain number, they're going to say, we're done, or when the cleaning's done, whatever happens first.
Yeah.
But I feel that a lot of people around this area, if you tell them no and make them feel like a criminal, like they do me every time, they're not going to go back. I have only gone back for the sake of my children, but I call the assistance center. I say, I'm ready to go be traumatized. And that's what it is. And I will get myself so sick and worked up for the 2 days before that I have to go there. I'll be a wreck because I never know what's going to happen. Sometimes I'll go in there and they'll say, all right, oh, yep, here, what do you want your check? Here you go. And I'll walk out. Other times I'll go there and they will treat me like a criminal and make me go through receipts. And I don't know if that's their tactic.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's what I'm like getting, that is the tactic. You know what I mean? So let's be mean, and then it may deter them from coming back. And that's a terrible thing to do. We, this entire time, have been going to the people who have done this to us for help, and it has made it horrible. That disaster declaration or an emergency declaration should have been declared months ago. It should have been declared a week after this has went on. We have been failed at the highest level, at the highest levels of government and by everyone else, by letting people suffer, children suffer, people be traumatized. My life will never, ever be the same that it was before this. And you have people say, you want that money from Norfolk Southern, you want this. I'm not getting any money or making any money from Norfolk Southern. Every dollar they're giving me is being spent out and put back for my family to be relocated. And I have almost $8,000 in receipts that Norfolk Southern has not reimbursed me for. And I have done this to protect my children and my family, and I've held on to hope that somebody is going to be the hero and do the right thing, and it's just not happened. I've even joined Unity Council, and that is just a group of us residents in the affected area that are trying to make this right for not only our children, but their children's children. If I can't get out of there, why can't they at least try to do things that they should be doing? Testing, continuous testing. EPA's done testing. And that's another thing that blows my mind. You're done. You guys said you were going to test for 30 years. Wasn't that said in the beginning or something? Oh, now you're done. It's like, what is going on here? Twilight Zone, once again.
Yeah, no, I mean, this afternoon we interviewed Shelby Walker, who lives on Taggart Street, 900 feet from where they detonated 5 cars of vinyl chloride. Her backyard backs up to essentially a massive construction site right now, where you've got trucks constantly driving through. There's massive piles of rocks and dirt. They've got water pumps, all sorts of stuff in her backyard. They currently won't relocate her because they're accusing. We're going to be posting this interview in the next couple of days, so stay tuned. But they're accusing her of being fraudulent with this. She explains the whole situation. It does not appear that that's the case. And again, somebody 900 feet away from the derailment. This happened literally in her backyard.
It did. And can I say something about Shelby?
Yeah.
Shelby's well known in East Palestine. People know that she has many children. Her children have children, and they have a huge family. No one has yet to even knock on her door. A mayor, the city manager, a councilman, anybody from NS, anybody from the EPA to say, are you and all these children? I think she had something like 13 people living in her home. Okay. That is ridiculous. That right there should show everybody else what is going on here. And the reason I want to get this out here, because if you think this couldn't happen in your town, it could. And I ask myself a lot, like, what would happen if this happened in a big city? You know what I mean? This can happen anywhere. And every American should be fighting for us, because if they're going to do it to us, trust me, when it happens in your backyard, they're going to do it to you.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, if they're able to get away with it, and in a lot of cases, I mean, you know, first, it's Norfolk Southern's fault, no doubt about it, but at this point, when you've got the EPA handling the situation in the way that they are, they're complicit in some of this at this point. They're
100% agree.
To continue on the conversation with Shelby, I mean, her backyard had this happen a couple months back. Her backyard flooded with water from the derailment site that was still being cleaned up. She had a tanker car literally leaning against her back property line, essentially, and her whole backyard floods with water. She's been asking the EPA to do soil tests in her yard. They're afraid to go in the backyard because they get sick when they spend too much time back there. The EPA says that they will not do a soil sample in her backyard until the entire cleanup process at the derailment site is done. Meanwhile, she's still living in her home. You can't tell me that the EPA does not have the resources to do a test now and then also do one again later, and maybe do one every week.
She's only living in her home because we are to the point where we cannot continue to do what we're doing. It's not life-sustaining. So we are literally accepting the fact we're going to poison our children, we're going to poison our kids, because these people are leaving us with no other options.
Right. And it's unfortunate, because the unfortunate reality is the financial situation behind all of this is people can't, like, a lot of folks in East Palestine are not going to be able to, while they still have their house and haven't sold their house, be able to go get a second mortgage and be able to do this. It's not a reality that something like that
Especially
could
with the
happen.
house market right now. It's insane.
Yeah.
You know, the price of houses are you $250,000, you know, it's a house that's in dilapidated condition, you know. It's mind-blowing, because I was trying to find any other option than going home, and there's just nothing financially that I can finagle to make it work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the fact that testing cannot continue to happen, that when she told me that today, that she's like, oh, I can't even get the EPA to do a soil test in my backyard, there is no logical reason to not just be doing that, especially if there are people staying in these homes. There's no logical reason. The EPA is part of the federal government of the United States.
Yes.
We're happy to go send hundreds of billions of dollars overseas to wherever it may be, the issue of the week, the issue of the month, but we can't afford to do a couple extra soil samples in a small town. Right.
They have something like I want to say $12 billion or something.
Yeah,
I'm not
whatever
exactly
it is.
sure. They have a huge budget.
And get Norfolk Southern to pay for it.
Yes,
Norfolk
exactly.
Southern is a $1 billion company. They profit millions and millions, maybe billions every year. That would be a drop in the bucket for them. And the EPA essentially at this point won't force them to do more soil sampling or won't do the soil sampling. It doesn't make sense. You mentioned the disaster declaration. I want to get to that. So Governor DeWine of Ohio took almost 5 months or so before he would even write the letter for a disaster
It was
declaration.
the last day he had to actually request an extension.
I think it was July 4th or 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay. So waits until July 3rd, 5 months after the derailment happens, to write the letter asking for a disaster declaration. That was 4.5 months too late, first off. And then the other major red flag in this was in that disaster declaration letter that he sent to the Biden administration, it said in there that the community of East Palestine currently has no unmet needs. I've been asking this to people the whole time I've been here. I think I know what you're going to say, but are there unmet needs in East Palestine?
Well, they're liar, liar, pants on fire. That's what we've called DeWine from the beginning. You even caught him on a lie, in a lie. He knows 100% that that statement is a lie straight from the pit of hell. We have written numerous senators, numerous letters. I know people have called the White House. I know people have reached out to the White House. He knows that there are unmet needs in East Palestine. And he knows that when they went to Columbus and marched to the State House and protested during a meeting and had to get kicked out because no one would hear us. People got mad about that, but we tried to do the right thing for 4.5 months straight. Nobody would listen. That interrupting that meeting was wrong, but it's not as wrong as what we're having happen to our families. And it's like, he is waiting to the very last minute to do things. He knows that people are suffering. He knows that people are hurting, and is going along with the narrative of the EPA too, that everything's fine. And it just, Liz, I know I've said it 100 times, but it doesn't make sense to me. I did not think the government was supposed to did things like this, And, this needs to be a cautious tell for everybody else in America. This can happen to you. So if you let the EPA and the government fail this community, when it happens next, they're going to fail your community too. Yeah. And this is what's been happening for years. The EPA comes in, they do the least they can. Yeah. Love Canal. We can name so many other.
Times Beach.
Times Beach, 9/11, where they said it was safe, and all those people that have cancer now. It's just, it's a repetition of history. And I want to stop it here. And there's a lot of people that said they've never met people like us from East Palestine, that we are relentless. But, we're a small, knit family town. And when our families' lives are at risk, we're going to fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is outrageous. You mentioned going and protesting at that. It was at the State House during a meeting of the State House in Ohio here, and interrupted. And it's like, meeting with your representatives and senators apparently only gets you so far. When you get to that point, you're 4.5 months later. Ask yourselves, what legislation has been passed since this to prevent something like this happening in the future? None. Ask yourselves, what federal legislation has been done to try to make things right for folks here? None. So
It's been a lot of puff and smoke with no actual anything being done. We really need a hero here. We need a hero. Somebody to come out and do the right thing for these people.
And it's not even that it's hard to find stories like this. We've been here 4 times at this point, and especially this last week. We're walking around town, going to get lunch in town, and people are stopping me left and right, wanting to talk about these sorts of things again, because nobody is here talking about it anymore. And I'll say to senators or Congress people, like, if you don't think that this is happening, go spend even a couple hours walking around East Palestine. And you will hear story after story after story. People will come up to you.
Oh, they know it's happening. All the senators are well aware of what's happening. We have, as Unity Council, have reached out to a multitude of them. So if they want to act like they don't know what's going on, it's a lie. Yeah. And them knowing what's going on, if they continue to fail us, it should just not be okay for them to do that. And they're embarrassing their own selves. You know what I mean? You're promising to help. You're promising to do the right people. You say you work for the people. As Bill Johnson has come down and says, he'll help, he'll help, he'll help. You guys are saying you're going to help, but when are you really going to help? Right. The only real help that we've got was, I think it was, tell me his name, Sherrod Brown, I believe, is who wrote the letter urging Biden to sign the declaration. Right. We need more of those. We need more senators to reach out and write, hey, this should have been done already. Right. So, I do give props to Sherrod Brown. He has been the only one. But all he did was write a letter. there should have been a lot more fighting going on for us.
Right.
Our lives are potentially being taken.
Mm-hmm. Right, and writing a letter is great. I'll give them that. Writing a letter is great, but you've got a much bigger platform than that. You're one of 100 senators in the entire United States. You wrote your letter 2 weeks ago. The Biden administration has not acknowledged any of it publicly. Make some public statements about, you know what I mean? Again, writing a letter is great, but let's get on the news, make some public statements. You're a U.S. senator. You can get the media attention if you want it. Do something with it. Same thing to J.D. Vance. Where I heard J.D. Vance was in town yesterday. That's a good thing. I'm glad that he's in town checking in on this. Make some big statements about this.
I believe all that was only done, the letter, J.D. Vance coming to town, was because a group went to Washington, D.C. also and met with people.
Right.
It was residents that had to take time to go to Washington, D.C. to fight for our town. And it put them in a predicament, I think, that, you know, they were in a rock and a hard place where they had been, you know, promising. Well, you know, we're here now. It's time to come through on your promises. So I think they were forced to do something.
Right.
Whether it will continue,
we'll see.
I don't know. We've been failed all these months.
Right.
You know, and our town is still horribly contaminated. The creeks are contaminated. People are still getting sick. Nothing is any different than it was February 4th, except that we know more, and I've become a scientist and a multitude of other things.
I want to stay on this, but for folks watching right now, please press the like button if you're just joining us right now to help get this out to more folks. I'll also say, too, again, this is our 4th reporting trip back to East Palestine. Unfortunately, the situation, you know, while it's changed a bit in different ways, the situation with residents being made whole in some sort of way has not really improved. We want to make sure that we can continue to come back to places like East Palestine to make sure that stories of folks like Candace, like Shelby, who we talked to earlier, Lonnie, who we talked to earlier, the ladies we spoke with last night over in Darlington, Pennsylvania, we want to make sure that these stories continue to get out there. If you're able to support our reporting to be able to make sure that these trips continue to happen, literally for as little as $5 a month, you can do so by becoming a Status Coup member. StatusCoup.com/join is the place you can do it. Who else is coming out here and still doing it? I'll give some props. You know, News Nation's still done a couple stories on this in the last couple months, but man, not a whole lot of places are out here telling these stories, spending the time with residents to be able to come out and do it.
And they're only coming because we are relentlessly blowing them up and forcing them to give us some type of coverage.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and it's ridiculous that has to be the case to be able to do so. So if you're able to help us out to be able to continue to come back to East Palestine, continue to go back to Flint, Michigan, Kalamazoo, all of the other places that you've seen Status Coup relentlessly go back to, you've seen Jordan relentlessly go back to so many of these places, please, StatusCoup.com/join is the place to do so. If you can't help us that way, hit the subscribe button down below. We're getting close to 150,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's a free way you can help us out. We'll get back into this, though. So DeWine sent that letter. It's now in the hands of President Biden to do something with it. To date, he has not even acknowledged it. I don't think he's made a single statement about East Palestine ever. Obviously, he still hasn't been here yet.
He said he's coming.
He said he's coming. What do you make of that?
I mean, I think it's puff and smoke. I think he says he's coming, but when are you going to come? It's already way too late for you to come. What are you going to come for now? What are you going to do?
Right.
You know what I mean? The damage is done. You have traumatized a community of people. You have poisoned a community of people. And it's like, do I still expect them to do the right thing? Yeah, but it's way too far gone, you know?
Right. Too little, too late. Because the scary element of all of this that we've discussed before is vinyl, you know, the health symptoms that we've heard from folks now and over the last couple of months are not good. Don't get me wrong. It's got to be horrifying to need to bring your small children to the hospital with all sorts of different instances like you have multiple times. But the scarier stuff is going to come 5-10 years from now. And I hope that it is not the case and that I'm wrong in this. But there are some clear facts here that vinyl chloride is a carcinogen. When you set vinyl chloride on fire, it turns into all sorts of other carcinogens, whether that be hydrogen chloride, formaldehyde, dioxin, phosgene. Many of these other chemicals are also carcinogens. So, you know, coming back 6 months later, maybe helping people relocate 6 months later, a year later, helping them sell their house, the damage is potentially already done. there was about a month and a half or so ago, the CDC actually held a town hall here in East Palestine. I'm not sure if you were at it. I'm sure you saw the video of it if you weren't there. At one point, the member of the CDC says, well, you know, and this was when residents are asking about the vinyl chloride urine tests that were going on quite a bit about, again, probably a month and a half or so ago. These tests were really difficult to get initially. Residents fought tooth and nail to be able to get them. Many folks were testing positive for vinyl chloride in their urine. And this, you know, gentleman from the CDC said, well, we don't know how to remove vinyl chloride from your body, but we do know how to treat those cancers later down the line. And the brazenness of the comment kind of sent a little shockwave through the room, it seemed, but it also might have been one of the biggest pieces of truth that an agency has said at this point. I'm curious what your reaction was to that comment when it happened, and you know, if you're thinking about those sorts of things down the line.
Well, I mean, I'm a very logical person, and if you would ask me this, you know, February, you know, 10th, I would probably say, no, you know, I hope that that's not the case. But now knowing what I know, I know that my family was all exposed. We stayed in our home all the way up until right before the who came in, the National Guard came in and, you know, told us to leave. So we were there while that train car burnt for many days. And that's where them failing us started. We should have been at least aware. They could have went around on that microphone while they were evacuating homes and said toxic chemicals were on the train. If you want a choice to, you know what I mean? So we have a choice to leave. Nobody said toxic chemicals were on that train for the first, you know, 24 hours or so. And, you know, we started guessing and finding out more information. But that guy did say we were all exposed. And if your body's testing positive for vinyl chloride, we can't get it out, but we'll treat the cancer when you get it down the road. And you know, I just accepted that. NS probably took 15 years or whatever off of my whole family's life, the 3 days of that burn. So what's going home and me trying to live there going to do to me and my children's life, you know? Just terrible.
No, it absolutely is. I guess as we're looking forward here, again, over 6 months now since this happened, what are your kind of, you know, you're moving back into your home. What are you hoping for next? I mean, obviously I'm hoping the move back into your home goes okay and that, you know, you're not getting sick, but what are your kind of next steps as you move through this now?
Well, I'm hoping when we go back home, the kids don't get sick again, which I have a bad feeling because, like I said, I've been getting sick even going there cleaning, you know, symptoms, sore throat. My front teeth felt like they were going to fall out when I was outside doing work. But am I going to go home and live there forever? No, I just got to go home so that I can be stationary, find employment, and, you know, work a little bit. And maybe we only get a year exposure and then, you know, we can find an option to get out. That's my hopes. It's just something feasible. So I have to go home and expose my family for however long it takes for me to financially to afford or figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah, no, it's that's, again, the situation that not just Candace is in, but there's plenty of other residents in the same situation that are running out of options, that cannot continue to bounce around from hotel to hotel to Airbnb to Airbnb, and have this inevitably go on for, again, 6 months. Imagine yourself in that situation for 6 months, bouncing around from hotels to Airbnbs with your children and dogs.
When you go on a week vacation, you know, you hit that 6th day, you're just like, oh, I just want to go home. I just want to go home to my bed, you know, and I do get those feelings. But then what creeps in the back of my mind is my home's ruined, you know, and as badly as I wanted to go there, I have told myself, you know, I promised I would never go back, Lewis. I remember in the beginning telling you, I will never go back. And look where I am. Mm-hmm. Look where I am. Right. And I should not have to be here.
Candace, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us again.
Yes, always.
I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep talking to the folks for a little bit here, and I'll come find you in a second, but I really appreciate it. Again, guys, that's Candace DeSanzo. We met the first time, I don't even know when it was, back in February, and this has just continued for 6 months where the EPA is continuing to deny test results at their new testing inside of homes. They're not doing soil tests. Again, the instance that I mentioned with Shelby Walker, who lives 900 feet from the derailment site, can't get a soil test from the EPA in her backyard, which is literally where this derailment happened. In her backyard, this happened. She can't get a soil test until after the cleanup is done, even after, water from all of this stuff floods into her backyard. Colin, if you're watching, if you don't mind sending any super chats, I'm going to keep talking for a little bit, but I'll make sure we get the super chats and can read them. Last call for super chats that I'll be able to read, but you can keep sending them in if you want to. But having that conversation with Shelby earlier was absolutely shocking. We also, like I mentioned, just talked with Lonnie earlier today about the kind of emotional and mental side of all of this. Her house is right across the street, directly across the street from the train tracks. It was I believe she said it was 1,800 feet away from where that train derailed. She lives right on East Clark Street if you're from East Palestine. And walking out of your front porch the night of, seeing a ball of flames essentially shooting up, and thinking that the end of your street is on fire, there's potentially homes on fire, hearing the noises of that, and then weeks later, returning home and having to listen to a giant freight train roll right by your house every hour or so. Imagine listening to that every single night and wondering, could there be another one? Because that is what is going on with a lot of these folks in town right now, and it's criminal. It's the fact that nobody is being held accountable for this in the way that they should be is criminal. These residents 100% obviously don't deserve this. They don't deserve to need to be continuing to go back to Norfolk Southern, the people who caused all of their problems in the first place, to get help, to be seen as begging for help. When again, this company messed up. This company messed up big. And they're making these residents jump through hoops, just to get basic needs covered, to relocate temporarily. And despite all of that, not be held accountable by the federal government, by the state government to do anything about it. The fact that permanent solutions for folks who want to leave are not even remotely seriously being discussed should be criminal. Again, Candace said the amount of money that she's been able to get in reimbursements for hotels and Airbnbs and whatnot, instead of doing that, if that money was put towards helping her and her family get out and buy a new house, they probably would have been able to do so. And they're not the only ones. I've heard that from other residents as well. They've spent so much money to temporarily relocate these people that at this point they probably could have permanently relocated. What sense does that make? None. That's how much sense. We'll get into reading some super chats here. Thank you. We've got first one from Jordan, $10. While the rest of the media is on the latest Trump indictment bonanza, Lewis is on his 4th reporting trip to EP. This is expensive. Show him and Status Coup some love. Appreciate that, Jordan. Thank you very much. Kat Faye Garrett, $20. Thank you, Kat, for that. We really appreciate it. Chris Garrett, $5. Showing some love for Status Coup. Lewis and John for keeping the story alive. Thanks for the respite from the Trump arraignment syndrome reporting. Trump arraignment syndrome. That's a good line there from Chris Garrett. We appreciate all those super chats, and we actually just got another one here from Caitlin, $2. It is inexcusable what is happening in East Palestine. I'm so sorry. Thank you all for all those different super chats. And again, for those of you watching right now, if you want to make sure that we can continue to do these trips, membership is the most important way to do it. It is not cheap to be able to do these. Flights, rental car, hotels, all this sort of stuff. These are not easy trips to pull off. You can help us out by literally chipping in as little as $5 a month. StatusCoup.com/join. We just got another one as well. Caitlin, $2. Thank you, Status Coup, for the work you do. Appreciate that, Caitlin, as well. Tomorrow, we've got another big day scheduled. We also recorded a ton of interviews today. So if you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button down below. If you're watching us on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere else as well, you can scoot over to the YouTube. Make sure you give us a subscribe over there, and you'll be able to be some of the first to see some of those videos as they come out. Tomorrow night, we're also going to be having a big live stream. I don't have the exact time for the start yet, but I'd imagine it'll be somewhere around 5 or 6. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you have notifications on YouTube, and you'll be able to see that. We're going to have quite a few residents here to be able to speak with from that event tomorrow night. We're also going to be talking to residents all throughout the day, so you definitely want to make sure that you can see all of that. I'm going to start to wrap this up here, though. Really appreciate all the support so far. If you're watching us again, if you see some of our videos popping up, please consider sharing the videos to help get it out there. Again, right now, a lot of the focus is on the latest Trump news, which, pay attention to that if you want to, but I think that, massive company poisoning a small town is a little bit more important at this point in time. So, Fly Trump or Fly, $2. Thanks again for that last minute one. And last night I missed you on your super chat, so thanks for that one as well. So with that, we're going to wrap this up here. Appreciate everybody watching and taking their time to check this out. Please share some of our content here from East Palestine to help get the word out, because unfortunately there's not a lot of